Kicking off the list at number 10, what if the Fantastic Four had not gained their superpowers? Okay, the Fantastic Four, the FF, they got their powers when they were on a space mission, and all of a sudden cosmic radiation entered the chat. Powers were given to them all at the same time, each obtaining a hint of the elements. But what if this space mission didn't go south? What if that cosmic storm didn't get past the spaceship's shielding? Well, afterwards, the rocket group, that's what they're called after, becomes the highest ranking space industry, so even without powers, they're still awesome. But when Mole Man's monsters come along to attack, the team still comes out on top because science always wins. And before we continue on with this list, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, that would be so great. It helps the channel out a lot. Or if you want to hit subscribe, our faces will pop up on your feed. How lovely is that? Number 9, what if Spider-Man had rescued Gwen Stacy? Yes, okay, I remember sitting in the theater watching The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is so underrated as a movie. Side note, it gets way too much for some reason. But when Gwen was falling in the clock tower, I held my breath. I knew what was gonna happen, and to this day, it's one of the saddest scenes in a comic book film. So this what if certainly helped ease that pain. Issue 24 shows us a world where he caught Gwen, and after that, it's beautiful. He proposes, he reveals his identity to her, and on top of that, Harry and Norman reunite. They work it out. All of the wins, look at this. And then when Peter and Gwen do get married at the ceremony, they're doing the cha-cha slide, which I personally love doing. But then J. Jonah Jameson bursts in with a bunch of police officers with footage that reveals Peter Parker as Spider-Man. So at this point, Peter was forced to run for the rest of his life to protect the ones that he loved. I had you in the first half. I know I did. These what ifs are mostly sad. Number 8, what if the Phoenix had not died? Issue 27 of What If again shows us a brighter future. Well, at least it starts that way. In this alternate reality, Jean didn't die. She was actually reborn again, and then when the X-Men have to take on Galactus and Terrax in the Shi'ar Galaxy, she uses that Phoenix Force to get the job done. She puts an end to Galactus, which sounds great on paper, but the Phoenix Force starts to amplify and get a little bit more and more out of control. So she accidentally destroyed a small star and other asteroids, and when she returns to the X-Mansion, she's now in hot water for destroying yet another star. Shadowcat is not pleased, so Jean turns into the Dark Phoenix and takes out Shadowcat, and Polaris, and Cyclops, and also planet Earth, and then shortly after consumes the universe. That escalated quickly, wow. Number 7, what if the Punisher was a hall monitor? Dipping into a more comedic side of things because the last two were just straight tragic, the Punisher as a hall monitor, short and sweet, and it couldn't get any better. He's watching the halls in a quiet, generic grade school in a typical town in USA. You can find this in volume 2, issue 34. It's pretty intense. I mean, it goes for the comedic take, but Frank Castle being Frank Castle in front of any children, that's a nightmare. They thought they were off the hook at the beginning of the issue. The kids reiterate the fact that the Hulk is no longer watching these halls, so they're fine. So once the Punisher sends them to the principal's office after getting caught, the last panel we see is the Hulk in the principal's chair now. It's a short one, but the idea is actually terrifying and hilarious all at the same time. Poor kids. I thought my principal was scary. I thought Mr. Hubert was scary. No, the Hulk is a bit more scary. A bit, just a little bit. Number 6, what if the Beast and the Thing continued to mutate? Volume 1, issue 37. When the Thing is being mutated from Virus X in the normal timeline, Captain America tells him about MODOK's base, but in this tale, the Thing takes off before he gets a chance to do so. So Captain America and Giant Man raid MODOK's base on their own, then they get the antidote that Bill can now use to cure his cancer. Ben reaches this point when he's evolving, and he ends up releasing all of this cosmic energy that 1, cured himself of Virus X, and 2, cured Alicia's blindness. Double win. Yes. Grimm is happy with the family, and the newly cured Giant Man takes Ben's spot on the Fantastic Four. It's good. This is a good one. We got one. Nice. Number 5, what if the Avengers had never been? Now, with all of these multiverse stories beginning in the MCU, it feels like the Avengers have never been further apart. It's exciting, but also a little concerning. This what if was actually the first what if issue with a major death, just 3 issues in. They're going for it. So we start off with the Hulk, and instead of smashing and hitting, he's dashing and quitting. He wants nothing to do with the team. So Rick Jones is sent to look for the Green Goliath, but he ends up being held hostage, where Tony Stark has to now come to the rescue. to. Now they make it back to the mansion, but Namor and Hulk want more. They challenge Earth's mightiest to the fight for their lives. Now Iron Man makes suits for Hank, Jan, and Rick, but they can't control the suits. It's too much for them, so they stay in retirement. So Stark powers up his own suit to the max, and then some more, so it's a lot of power going on, almost unobtainable. But then when the rest of the team finally do show up to the battle in Stark's other suits, Hank takes a hard hit. So Tony has to then transfer his suit's energy, that fat energy, in order to keep Hank alive. So even in this what if, Tony still throws his life down for others. How sweet. Number 4. What if Professor X had become the Juggernaut? In this reality, Professor X is the one who becomes Juggernaut and gets buried in the Temple of Sidorak. Now this caused him to go down a completely different path when it comes to the X-Men, because after this, well, he never created the X-Men, so now the Fantastic Four has to go against Magneto. So after Professor X Juggernaut head digs his way out, he discovers his telepathy was now much stronger with the added powers. What a treat. I mean, not really. He ends up taking over the country with his own X-Men posse to enforce these anti-human laws. Cyclops even sides with Magneto at this point because he's like, okay, at least this guy can block Xavier's telepathy. And it all comes down to this final confrontation with Cyclops and Xavier. They're battling it out on Asteroid M, and Cyclops is trying to remind Xavier about the vision, the original dream, with humans and mutants living together in perfect harmony. Doesn't that sound lovely? And then before we could really consider it, the ground beneath him exploded and he got launched into space forever. Oof! Number 3. What if Loki had found the hammer of Thor? The final issue of Volume 1 of What If, again, something we're kind of close to seeing in the MCU, especially with Loki Season 2 being confirmed. These timelines are about to be really enjoyable, and we might get a hint of this, I think. So Donald Blake ends up not finding the hammer because Loki tossed it into the woods, and then the Saturnians wiped out Donald. So Thor wakes up in the land of the dead, memory not included. This is all bad for Thor. It's not so much Loki using the hammer, he just alters the hammer's location, and then Thor's altered future is now a stressful one. Number 2. What if Spider-Man joined the Fantastic Four? Okay, with John Watts directing the newest Spider-Man trilogy for the MCU and the upcoming MCU Fantastic Four reboot, this next what if might not seem that impossible. The first ever issue of What If finds Pete with a number 5 on his chest. The Fantastic Five has a ring to it. I kind of love the idea already. So Pete was low on cash, so he figured, you know what, I'm gonna break into the Baxter building and straight up force an audition for Marvel's first family. So Sue recruits Peter and the team is formidable. They're great, they're solid. They're so good that Sue doesn't even feel like there's a need for her on the team anymore. There's always something sad. Don't do it, Sue. She ends up choosing Namor as her other half, even joining him in his kingdom under the sea. Now she did love Reed as well, but her departure from the team just made it work better with a fishy guy. Now if you want to see more of that altered storyline, because it is quite intriguing, jump ahead 20 issues once you're done this epic kickoff. And finally, coming in at number 1, what if somebody else besides Spider-Man had been bitten by the radioactive spider? This is perhaps one of my favorite what ifs because I genuinely have thought about what would happen if I was Spider-Man. I work for Top 10 Nerd, of course I'm going to daydream about this. Thing is though, I'm afraid of heights, so it wouldn't exactly be smooth sailing. But I can dream, right? Even in the Marvel Universe, other big names can't handle the webs. In this what if, we see Flash Thompson, Betty Brant, and John Jameson each get a swing at the sticky life. So Flash gets bit and then he decides to take a crack at professional wrestling with the new muscles and all. Now he may have underestimated his strength because he kind of accidentally killed the guy. You should have tapped. Oops. Next up, Betty Brant gets bit, and I have to admit her costume is for sure the most stylish. Very good, makes for great Instagram posts, sure. But when she runs out of web fluid making TikToks, the thief who took Uncle Ben's life was easily able to get away. She was like... And finally we see John Jameson's turn, and he goes out like a hero. He tries to stop a space shuttle from crashing, and it's a lot harder than it looks. If you're not Pete, just don't even try, honestly.
Number 10. Master Jonathan Storm. Master Jonathan Storm was a member of the Four from the Fantastic, who would become Count Otto von Doom's arch nemesis as well as his prisoners. He and the rest of the Four from the Fantastic would eventually end up escaping from Doom's clutches and resuming their adventures. Master Jonathan Storm, like the rest of the team, had received his powers while on a sea voyage after their ship had passed through a mysterious light. This light, it turns out, was actually part of the anomaly. Jonathan, like his 616 counterpart, can engulf his body in flame. Doom had to keep him directly underneath a constant waterfall just in order to smother his powers enough to keep him contained. Number 9. Enrique. Enrique is the 1602 version of Magneto, and he is overwhelmingly powerful because he not only gets to keep the powers of Magneto from 616, but he also holds an important position with the Church as their Grand Inquisitor. In the world of Earth 311, mutants are actually believed to be the Devil's work and are referred to as witch breed. It was Enrique's job to hunt them down and wipe them out, but being a witch breed himself, and his children Wanda and Petros also being witch breed as well, meant that he did his best to help these 1602 mutants, executing only those whose mutations could not be hidden and were generally more physical mutations. Anyone he felt he could help, he recruited to his own brotherhood in an attempt to protect them. Well, in our world, Magneto is more a villain or perhaps an anti-hero. In 1602, the Grand Inquisitor seems about as heroic as he could be given his position. So I think we can count him a hero here. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to go to more alternate worlds, please be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, Sir Nicholas Fury. Sir Nicholas Fury was a soldier who attained glory on the battlefield and was noticed for his service to the country and the crown by the Queen herself. She knighted Fury and also made him the head of her own secret network or service of spies. Nicholas Fury would recruit other heroes to his cause, and while he might not have any superpowers to speak of in this reality, he is a key player in many major storylines and battles of good versus evil in the world of 1602. He would go on to work for King James after the death of Queen Elizabeth, and later go rogue when he felt that his own beliefs for how to best keep the country and its citizens safe no longer aligned with his king's. He also kind of began to question whether or not he even cared really about saving the world, which, fair enough. Number 7, King James. King James I of England was more of a villain, I suppose, in terms of the narrative, but it is implied that he is also possibly known by a heroic name back on the Earth of 616. In 1602 Witch Hunter Angela issue number 1, it appears that King James is none other than a version of James Howlett. If this is true, it could be that his persecution of the witch breed was simply something he did in response to his own origins and hatred of his own abilities and of himself. But it's also unclear if this is the same King James. King James, in terms of his larger role in the world, took over as a ruler after the assassination of Queen Elizabeth. He was the driving force behind the Inquisition that sought to purge all witch breed from the country. King James was shown in 1602 Witch Hunter Angela to have powers similar to Wolverine of Earth 616. King James, as he appeared in Marvel 1602, was known for being the ruler of not just England but also of Scotland, and was making progress towards conquering and ruling Ireland as well. And if you're thinking, but wait a minute, King James in the 1602 reality was not very heroic. Yes, you're right, but the version of him that is kind of combined with Wolverine, Wolverine's a hero, and so by extension, that's why he's on the list. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. Number 6, Virginia Dare. Virginia Dare is a unique character to come out of 1602, or she was intended to be unique anyways. Some have compared her powers to that of Canadian Marvel superhero Snowbird, but Neil Gaiman and Andy Kubert, who created Virginia Dare, intended for her to be an original character in the sense that she was not made to be a mirror or counterpart to any 616 superhero that already existed. Virginia Dare's powers allow her to shapeshift into any creature, including animals and even mythological beasts. She was the first child born in the Roanoke colony, which in the reality of Earth 311 never mysteriously disappeared in the 1580s. Virginia received her powers from coming into contact with the rift that brought Captain America into the 1602 reality, and she was also friends with his 311 counterpart known as Rojaz. Number 5, Captain Benjamin Grimm. Like Master Jonathan Storm, Captain Benjamin Grimm also ended up imprisoned by Count Otto von Doom. But where Jonathan was kept beneath a waterfall, Grimm was confined to a room so small he could not even sit in it. For years, he continued to thrash against the walls, and eventually, he managed to put a tiny crack in the wall of his cell. This crack would prove to be Grimm's salvation, allowing him to escape his cell and free his fellow teammates, who then were able to join up with Sir Nicholas Fury, who was also there at the time and eager to rescue his old friend Sir Richard Reed. And if you're wondering how a tiny crack did that, well, the tiny crack was obviously the beginning of everything falling apart in his cell, so yay. Benjamin, like his 616 counterpart, has a body that is incredibly strong due to his rock-like form. He was also the captain of the ship the Four from the Fantastic sailed on when they got their powers, named, of course, the Fantastic. Hence why they're the Four from the Fantastic. Get it? Number 4, Stephen Strange. or Dr. Stephen Strange if you want. Stephen Strange was taken prisoner by sailors, being sold by them to a doctor from whom he learned many things both of science and of medicine. While on a mission to retrieve herbs for his master in exchange for his freedom, venturing up into the mountains, he ended up almost dying, but fortunately was saved by the members of a monastery. During his time there, he learned the mystical arts, and after recovering fully, he was able to complete his mission, returning with the herbs for the doctor in order to gain his freedom back. He would end up becoming the physician to the Queen of England, Elizabeth I, and would connect with Yuata, the Watcher, gaining knowledge that he could only speak of after his life had ended. Now, knowing that this was the only way for him to pass on the valuable knowledge that he had gained to other heroes of his world, he allowed himself to be executed. Once he had been beheaded, his wife, Clea, retrieved his head so that she could commune with her late husband in death to learn of the knowledge he had been given. It's all pretty powerful, I think. I think if you can die and then still be like a really cool hero and like help people after you die, that's pretty powerful to me. Number 3, Hulk. David Banner is the 1602 version of Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk. He would take the place of Sir Nicholas Fury in King James's court after Fury betrayed and abandoned the new king. Initially, Banner was all for eradicating the witch breed and actually believed wholeheartedly in his mission, but after being exposed to the anomaly's energy while shielding his colleague and friend Peter Parquois, he found himself transformed into the creature known as the Hulk. He and Peter had been sent to the Americas to hunt down Fury and kill him on behalf of the king, but after this transformation, David began to question his loyalties and his beliefs. He would eventually return to England to surrender, but during his execution would actually transform into the Hulk and then kill King James. So I feel like if you kill a king, you're pretty powerful as well. I mean, the Hulk is just powerful in general. I think we can all agree. Number 2, Angela the Witch Hunter. As we learn in the main continuity, Angela of Earth 616 is actually Thor's lost sister, but in Earth 311, Angela was introduced as merely a mortal witch hunter who was tasked with hunting down and eliminating witch breeds on the behalf of King James. Later on, during Secret Wars, we would come to know her as a witch hunter who instead hunted demons. At least they seem like demons to me, referred to here as Faustians. Often these were characters we knew from 616, but then twisted into something evil in the style of the 1602 reality. So, having 311 counterparts like Captain James Buchanan. Angela traveled around with her lover and her companion Sarah, working to eliminate these Faustians in order to protect communities all over England from their villainous ways. She is immensely powerful in the end, becoming sort of a combination of her own 616 self and Enchantress after defeating Amora in this reality, but also becoming cursed with her power as a result. But even if you're cursed with power, you're powerful. Number 1, Thor of the Thunders. Or just Thor, or Donal the Ancient One. Donal the Ancient One is the old member of the Templar Order who ends up forced into becoming the mortal host for the pagan god known as Thor of the Thunders. This transformation happens when Donal is forced to defend himself and those he travels with while transporting the Templar artifact disguised as a stick that is really Thor's hammer Mjolnir. Thor is obviously one of the most powerful superhero characters in Marvel Comics, and he remains so even in this alternate world belonging to the 1602 universe of Earth 311. Number 10, Toad. While Toad might not be known for being super powerful strength-wise or even power-wise in comparison to some other characters in the 1602 universe, he does hold power and information. Toad was the one who managed to put the Grand Inquisitor Enrique, aka Earth 311's Magneto, in jeopardy, and almost got him burnt at the stake. Of course, the Inquisitor did manage to escape, and despite Toad's betrayal, even took the Brotherhood member along with him, because he didn't really know what else to do with him. Of course, Toad probably wouldn't have dared to betray Enrique's confidence in most cases, but when his life was threatened by the Pope, he proved how dangerous he could be in regards to the secrets that he had guarded. Number 9, NATASHA Romanova. In this reality, Natasha was a spy who ended up betraying Matthew Murdock on the behalf of Count Otto von Doom, whom she took as a lover. Natasha remained loyal to Doom even after he was disfigured, but when she questioned his plan to use this flying machine to voyage to the end of the world, he made quick work of her and tossed her overboard, where she presumably plummeted to her death. Although Natasha died fairly easily and was just a human, she was still quite an adept spy. Her biggest mistake was probably just aligning herself with Doom in the first place and thinking that it would ever be wise to question him or freely speak her mind, even when he was the one asking her to. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists like it, you want to learn more about 1602, please be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. I want to tell you more about 1602, so do that thing. Number 8. Lizard. The Lizard is the Earth 311 counterpart of the villain with the same name from Earth 616. He was once the philosopher Curtis Connors, who ended up contracting the bubonic plague. Connors attempted to cure himself with a concoction made in part out of dinosaur eggs. Kind of an interesting ingredient to be like, maybe this will fix it, but hey. Despite curing him, the cure he'd made also caused him to transform into a giant raptor. Oh yeah, did I also mention that there are dinosaurs in the reality of 1602? Because, yeah, there be dinosaurs here. Probably meant to exist as a version of the Savage Lands of Earth 616. Connor still had his mind after this transformation, but appearing as a monster, allied himself with another who had suffered a similar transformation, Baron Victor Octavius. Lizard was sent after the Spider, and while attempting to capture him, killed the assassin Bullseye, who was attempting to kill the Spider for his own master. Number 7. Medusa. Medusa in this reality is not a hero, but is known as a villain. She was a member of the THOR, who are frightful, as she kind of was in the main continuity as well for a time. Medusa, instead of being an inhuman, was simply a Gorgon who turned men to stone with her gaze. She was the paramour of Wizard, her fellow teammate. However, she accidentally turned him to stone when her veil was torn off by him by accident. I feel like being in a relationship with a Gorgon would be challenging for this very reason, because you'd have to be really careful about not looking into their face or catching their gaze. And that's of course what the protective veil was for, but in the end, having it obviously did not save the wizard, so you can wear a protective veil, but sometimes it might accidentally get ripped away. Number 6. Baron Victor Octavius. I love this alternate for Doc Ock. I seriously love it. It's so cool, it looks cool, it's unique. Baron Victor Octavius, like Curtis Connors, also suffered from the bubonic plague. In an attempt to cure himself, he created a concoction using octopi blood, also a strange ingredient, but I digress, which also ended up working but slowly transformed him into a hybrid octopus-like creature. Because the transformation from man to octopus was happening gradually, Octavius hoped to revert the process and find a cure. When he learned of the Spider, he set out to have him captured, as he figured he might be the cure, or more, the cure might be in his blood. It's kind of Morbius? Mobius? Man, which one is the vampire one? No, Mobius is DC, and Marvel, because there's Agent Mobius. Morbius is the vampire one. It's kind of like a Morbius thing actually, because I think Morbius also believed for a time that the cure was in like Peter Parker's blood for his own disease. But he ended up going after the Spider after he had already run mad experiments on captured humans and Witchbreed. Witchbreed are actually Earth 311's version of mutants, in case you didn't know. In the end, Victor would fully transform and believe that he had actually evolved into something more superior, embracing his new form. I think he went a little crazy. However, this was short-lived, as he ended up defeated by one of his scientists, Henri Lepim, who rebelled against him while in his giant form, squashing Octo Octavius with his ginormous foot. What a way to go. Ugh. Number 5. Master Osborne. While Norman Osborn in this reality more hunted for powers than possessed them, he still had his sharp wit and his conniving ways, which granted him more power than you might think in the 1602 reality of Earth 311. Osborn initially allied himself with King James in an attempt to try and discover First Nations people's source of power. Fortunately, he would not find it, but this would not stop him from trying time and time again. Even when it seemed as though Master Osborn had been defeated, he would find a way to rebuild his reputation or escape punishment, and come back usually even more determined to secure what he believed the First Nations folks of the Americas were hiding. He was the one who killed Virginia Dare and would go on to unsurprisingly become the nemesis of Spider-Man, aka the Spider as he was known in this reality. Number 4. Emperor Numenor. While Namor is generally given anti-hero or even hero status on Earth 616, also he's definitely played the role of villain as well in the reality of 616 before, so there's that. In the 1602 1602 reality, Namor is Emperor Numenor, the ruler of the city of the gods, known as Bensalem, that exists beyond the edge of the world. He plotted to steal away both Sue Storm and Jonathan Storm of the Four from the Fantastic to serve as both his and his cousin Rita's consorts. However, his plan to do so failed, and he ended up being double-crossed by his co-conspirator, Count Doom, which is usually how it goes for Namor in 616. The death of Namor also caused the destruction of Bensalem, which was tied to his lifeblood. Numenor not only possesses the abilities, strength, and durability of his 616 counterpart, but he also of course rules the powerful and mysterious Bensalem on our 311, which itself is advanced and holds a lot of power. Number 3. Purple Man. While Kilgrave is not really a villain within the alternate reality of Earth 311, he is the one that actually created this alternate universe. He hails from the alternate reality of Earth 460, where he became the president for life. Captain America of Earth 460, however, refused to accept Purple Man's presidency, continuing the fight for democracy, and in so doing had himself thrown back into the past by Purple Man. Purple Man didn't want any reason for people to basically rally around Captain America's cause, and decided the best way to get rid of him and destroy any rebellion would be to place Captain America into the past, as opposed to killing him in that present day and likely making him a martyr for others to rally around. In so doing, Purple Man actually created the reality of Earth 311, and Marvel heroes and villains surfaced years before they were meant to, appearing in 1602 on Earth instead of later in the 1940s and beyond. Number 2. Count Otto von Doom. Doom is always powerful, no matter what reality we're talking about, though in the 1602 universe he is also powerfully good at messing things up. Case in point, he ends up hunting for a powerful artifact that he intends to steal from the Knights Templar. When he manages to kidnap the old man Donnell and the artifact, he ends up being bamboozled into believing the artifact is a golden sphere, when in reality this item is actually a bomb, not the artifact. Doom attempts to use the artifact, only to discover it is a bomb when it blows up right in front of him, leaving him disfigured. Seeking a cure, he ventures to a city at the end of the world, the home of Namor, or Emperor Numenor here, known as Bensalem, and in attempting to conquer this city, ends up destroying it instead. Oops. Number 1. Enchantress, aka the Faustian Queen, or the Fairy Queen. Enchantress used Kip Marlowe's play Dr. Faustus to make citizens believe in demons and seek them out to make deals with them, i.e. her. When they did such, Enchantress would appear before them as whatever they expected to see or desired to see, and would make bargains with said people. After making a deal with her, however, the unsuspecting victim would also be left with a little piece of her inside them, which would cause them to transform into a demon-like creature known as a Faustian. Angela the Witch Hunter and her love Sarah ended up hunting down these Faustians, and as such were made to do battle with Enchantress. Despite her great power, Angela was able to defeat Enchantress, but in so doing became cursed with said power, and herself became the new Faustian Queen. Number 10. Captain Namor. In this reality, Namor is the captain of the submarine vessel known as Dorma, which is usually disguised as a fishing trawler. He is the ally to Tony Stark's Iron Man in this reality and helps the adventurer Tony Stark during his quest to find the hidden underwater city of Atlantis. Namor ends up losing his ship during this adventure and later saves Tony Stark's life because of this, claiming that Stark owes him a ship, which, yeah, is fair and also a good reason to save his life. Captain Namor doesn't have any superpowers to speak of, but still keeps his pointed ears in this reality, and this is because Namor actually sliced his own ears and the ears of his crew to help him identify them, making their ears resemble shark fins. I mean, ouch, but hey, it does look cool. Number 9. Angel. Thomas Holloway was the hero known as Angel. He and his twin brother Robert grew up at Welfare Pen, where their father was a prison guard. As such, he learned much from the inmates at Welfare Pen about the criminal underworld as he grew up. After the corrupt system resulted in the death of their teacher, Sean Cassidy, and later their father, who took his own life, Thomas was taken in by a well-off family who raised him. He and his brother Robert worked together, aiming to make the world a better place, becoming both investigators and vigilantes. Thomas Holloway was given the nickname Angel when he was a kid for saving one of the prisoners at Welfare Pen from the electric chair. He would later adopt this name as his superhero mantle. Angel didn't actually possess any superpowers per se, but he was a skilled acrobat, fighter, and detective. And in the Noirverse, that's all you really need here. And friends, before we move on to the next spot, just a quick reminder to click that like if you want to hear about maybe more from the Noirverse, or maybe just more from alternate realities in general. Ooh, alternate realities. Number 8. Wolverine. Wolverine in the Noirverse is still pretty powerful, but is not a mutant with powers in this continuity. Still, he does fight with his signature trademark weapons, his claws. Except that the claws we see him brandish in the alternate reality of Earth 90214 are weapons and not actually his own bones. Wolverine, oddly enough, has two different backstories in Noir, and it's never really explained as to if they actually connect, are related, or rather which is considered to be the actual true one in this continuity. In one series we see him as a bootlegger who spends most of his days intoxicated, and in another he is known as a hard-boiled detective with a dark and troubled past. Either way though, he's still tough as nails and the best at whichever he does. Number 7. Mr. Castiglione, or Frank Castle as he's also known in the Noir universe. Frank Castiglione Sr. was a single parent who returned home to New York City after fighting in World War I. His wife had died from cancer, and so he was left to raise their son Frank Jr. alone. Instead of wearing his skull vest or t-shirt in this reality, this version of Frank actually has a skull tattoo on his chest. Pretty badass. He attempted to protect and train his son when their family got tied up in a gang war. Mr. Castiglione is an experienced fighter and firearms expert, similar to his 616 counterpart, but just based in the Prohibition era instead. Number 6. The Demon. Kurt Wagner here is more of a neutral figure, really, if that. But in the main continuity of Earth 616, Kurt is considered a hero and a member of the X-Men, and so for that reason we're just gonna count him here as a hero for the purpose of this list. Kurt the Demon Wagner, as he's known in this reality, claims to be the world's greatest escape artist. He ended up being hired by Weapon X, which in the reality of 90214 is tied to the German government, and was working to capture the American spy Mimic. He made his first appearance in X-Men Noir: The Mark of Cain in issue number 1. Number 5. White Widow. White Widow is Felicia Hardy. She, like her 616 counterpart, usually anyways, doesn't really have any superpowers in this universe of Earth 90214. She also becomes infatuated with Spider-Man here, but is primarily involved with various villains and mob bosses. Before all of that though, she was the lover of Benjamin Urich, and acted as his contact when it came to gathering evidence on various officials and basically looking at all the corruption that was going on in the city. She managed to gather this information through her club, the Black Cat. After Urich's death, Felicia confronted his murderer, the Chameleon, who was disguised as Jonah Jameson, Urich's employer, and shot him to death. I love how much of like a fatale she is in this. It's so cool. Number 4. Daredevil. I actually really like this alternate version of Daredevil. Like, I like him a lot. His power is very similar to his Earth 616 counterpart, and like his main continuity version, is also blind. But what I really love about him is his backstory. He became blind after attempting to defend his father, a boxer, who was attacked in front of him and killed for not throwing a fight. Young Matt attempted to defend his father, and as a result got his head smashed into a wall, causing him to become permanently blind. Daredevil here also gets his alias from his profession as a stage performer, where he is known for his amazing stunts, hence his name. While he isn't a lawyer here, he does assist his friend Foggy Nelson, who in this reality is a detective. Everybody's a detective in the Noirverse. I love it. Number 3. Punisher. Punisher Noir, as he's known, is Frank Castiglione Jr., the son of Frank Castiglione Sr. His whole vengeance mission is actually about avenging his dad's death as opposed to his children and wife. Caught up in a gang war after refusing to pay the Schultz's protection money, Frank Sr. was attacked, and Frank Jr. decided to take up arms and get revenge for his father's death. Frank Sr. had taught his son well, preparing him for what he knew would be the war to come as a result of their choice to not pay that protection money. As such, the Punisher here is very similar to his 616 counterpart when it comes to his skills with weapons, tactics, explosives, and hand-to-hand combat. Number 2. Iron Man. Iron Man doesn't have any superpowers of his own, but instead relies on technology for his super abilities, like on Earth 616. Although I think on Earth 616 now Tony might have some actual powers attached to his body, but yeah, I think he can control tech. Tony comes armed with his own Iron Man armor here in the Noirverse. Initially, he was on a hunt for the Jade Mask, which he believed would cure his unexplained heart condition, as opposed to relying on the electrical device which kept him alive. He would be betrayed on this expedition and later team up with Captain Namor on his ship, the Dorma, to search for the lost city of Atlantis. In the reality of 90214, Tony's father, Howard, is also revealed to be the supervillain Baron Zemo. What a twist! Betrayal after betrayal for Tony here. Number 1. Spider-Man. Spider-Man in this reality does still have his powers, but is also known for being a decent investigator besides. He would go on to take on such villains as the Goblin, who in this reality is a powerful mob boss. The Goblin was also the one responsible for his Uncle Ben's death here, which is a part of his vendetta against him. It's personal, like it usually is with Goblin in most other realities for Peter besides. Spider-Man actually has the most villains probably of anyone in the Noirverse, but I guess that's because most of the Noirverse, like, he's the draw for it. It's very Spider-Man focused for a lot of the stuff we see. This version of Peter is also capable of producing organic webbing and is willing to fight with firearms.